Politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners.
I am the Rambling Madman.
I have this feeling, man, because there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. It's not I'm not a conspiracy nut.
Motherfuckers are so sensitive, the whole country is turned into bitch-ass niggas.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Ramblings of a Madman. I am your host, Mark Ciccarello Jr., a.k.a. the Rambling Madman, and today I'm coming at you with episode 24. I got a big episode planned here. I actually took notes this time. I got a few pages of notes here, all about the Plandemic, the pandemic that was really planned in advance. And I guess a lot of statistics here, sources from the mainstream media. I went right into the belly of the beast for this episode to get these notes, and it was sickening doing it, but I did it for you guys. I think I got a pretty good episode, an awesome episode planned here for you today, and I want to thank you for tuning in. I apologize for the lack of an episode last week. I'm not going to go too much into it. I just fucked up, didn't have an episode last week, and but I'm back at it. I'm back at it again this week. Like I say every week, if you enjoy these episodes, the most important thing you can do to help me out is to share these episodes, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you're listening to it. Follow me on Twitter. Anything, just help me spread this content out and reach a broader audience, and we can promote the freedom of conversation, the freedom of ideas, and the freedom of just freedom in general. So I to catch you guys up on where I'm at in my life right now, I finally reached my goal weight. I had a goal weight to lose 300 pounds, and which I used to be extremely fat, yes, and I did that. And now I set another goal for myself, another 40 pounds I want to lose, to put myself at 340 pounds total. And I'm excited to start that. I'm giving myself until June 20th, 2022 to get that 40 pounds. So it's about 11 months from now. 40 pounds in 11 months, sorry. Doesn't seem too difficult. I should be able to do that easy peasy. But I want to be shredded too by June 20th, 2022. So summer 2022, a year from now, I'm going to be fucking shredded diesel as fuck. The diesel rambling madman. And so that's where I'm at right now. I feel like I'm kind of like in a chill spot in life right now. My anxiety, which is usually pretty bad in terms of, not everyday people anxiety. I have existential anxiety where I get nervous about death and stuff like that. And it hasn't been as bad, and I feel like I've been kind of figuring things out. So I also want to start a new challenge today. Starting today, I'm going to challenge myself to do 3 things, try to do 3 things, 3 or 4 things, technically, every day to better my life and my mental well-being and my, spiritual well-being. So I'm going to challenge myself to every day find at least 5 to 10 minutes to meditate. Every day, do some sort of workout. I'm not going to go crazy. Like like I said, I want to be shredded by 2022, summer 2022. But you need a break every once in a while. But it's something as simple as doing 50 push-ups in a day. It's easy enough. Just get some physical activity in your life every single day. I'm going to meditate 5 to 10 minutes every day. Some sort of physical activity every day, and continue to stay hydrated. Staying hydrated is very important. It's very underrated. Drink that fucking water, guys. It leads to a lot of problems if you do not drink water. And of course, stay on track with how I eat. I eat generally pretty healthy already. But I want to. Those are the challenges I'm setting for myself. It's not even really a challenge. It's just trying to make it more consistent in my life. And I feel like I'm at a good place now. So if I start making sure this is a consistent thing that I'm doing, and meditating, specifically meditating is the most important part for me. But I feel like if I'm doing these things, then I could just elevate myself to a whole new level of consciousness, and so have it. And without rambling on too much here, actually want to play a clip for you guys before I get into the episode here on the Plandemic. I want to play a clip for you guys from George Carlin, and I know I play a lot about George Carlin and his anti-government clips and stuff like that, but this is not even from one of his stand-ups. This is actually a clip from an interview he did, I think it was in like 2008 or something, before he died, and it's just a very interesting little clip here. It's about 2 minutes long, and I'm just going to let the clip speak for itself. It's something I feel I agree with very much, and I hope you guys enjoy this clip as well.
So this whole thing, we have to save the planet by not putting diapers in the landfill. That's too short-sighted. It doesn't do anything. You have to change yourself, and we'll never do that because the dollars now, everybody wants $1 and a toy. Everybody's got a cell phone that'll make pancakes and rub their balls, so nobody wants to rock the boat. Nobody wants to change. Don't change anything. And we're in a nice downward glide. I think we squandered great gifts. I think humans were given great gifts. Walking upright, binocular vision, opposable thumb, large brain, making tools. Make tools, large brain, make better tools. Talk, have to like language. You take this, put in here. We learned language, the brain got bigger, language. We grew. We had great gifts, and we gave it all up for both for both money and God. God and mammon, both. We gave it up to the high priests. It's your job. It's God's will. That's what they say. People say it's God's will. That means God can do anything he wants, so why pray? They say, you pray for something. Okay, he didn't answer my prayers. Well, it's God's will. Well, if it's God's will, why did I even pray in the first place? He's going to do what he wants anyway. We gave it all up to superstition, primitive shit. With invisible man in the sky looking down, keeping track of what we do, make sure we don't do the wrong thing. If we do, he puts us in hell and we burn forever. That kind of shit is very limiting. It's very limiting for this brain we have. So we keep ourselves limited, and then we want a toy and a gizmo and gold, and we want shiny things, and we want something to plug in that'll make big things for us. And all that shit is nothing. It's nothing. We gave it all up. And Americans, who also had great gifts, when you take the theory of democratic rule, self-government, okay, they started off wrong. They owned slaves. They didn't let women vote. They didn't let people who didn't own land vote. Fine. They got off on the wrong foot. But the ideas were good. But we fucking blew that. We polluted it. We polluted it with this stuff, things, material goods, games, gizmos, toys, gadgets, having possessions. He's got a bigger truck. He says, see his truck? It's bigger than mine. I'm getting a new truck. Here's a big truck. Oh, I'm getting that one. That's what, you got a video in it? You DVD too? He don't have a DVD. I got a DVD, Oh, please. Whatever happened? And all of that is what happened, And that's why I'm divorced from it now.
I just really love that clip from George Carlin. I know a lot of people will listen to that and think, like, well, he's just rambling on and talking crazy, and it doesn't make any sense. And, well, maybe it doesn't make any sense. I guess you're right. Maybe it doesn't. Or maybe it makes a whole lot of fucking sense if you actually think about it. The society that we live in is so materialistic, so superficial, so consumerist that it's fake. We're not worried about any real problems. We're not worried about, what's going on in Palestine right now. We're worried about, the iPhone 13 that's coming out in October. Or we're worried about stupid shit like that doesn't make any difference. We're worried about leveling, or not leveling, but creating an image for ourselves that we're just like everybody else. He's got a big truck. I gotta get a big truck now. What's yours? Got a CD player, DVD player? No, I gotta have that. Like, that's exactly what he's trying to say. Like, we're out of touch with each other, and we're more in touch with materials, and it's a really dark spot for humanity, and it really shows the true effects of capitalism, the true first-hand immediate effects that somebody would be aware of if they were first visiting a nation that has capitalism. And it's just that we're conceited assholes who don't really give a fuck about people or humanity or anything. We give a fuck about things and materials and things that don't make any money. Having the biggest screen in your house. Like, do you know how nuts it drives me to hear people always talking about how they want a bigger TV? I get it. It's nice to have a big TV, but like, it's getting nuts now. Like, what's wrong with a 45-inch TV? What's wrong with that? No, you gotta have a 75 fucking inch TV. You have to have a fucking 85 inch TV, a 90 inch TV, a 100 inch TV, a TV the size of your fucking wall, a TV that is your wall. We don't need that. Like, everybody wants more and more and more of this shit, and it's just like, at a certain point, it kind of freaks me out. I talked about how I have an Apple Watch. I bought it, and I was like, because my friends were showing me, like, the walkie-talkie feature on their Apple Watch, and I was like, damn, that's really cool. I'd really enjoy that. And I was like, oh, you can read your text messages on that? That's awesome as well. And then I get it, and I realize it's fucking useless, and it freaks me the fuck out that I have technology attached to my wrist all the time. Like, it just doesn't feel natural to have technology attached to my wrist. And you could make the argument, well, analog watches are technology too, but you know what the fuck I mean. A screen attached to my wrist. Why do we need so many fucking screens? So just live your fucking life. You don't have to be attached to people 24/7. I had bought this Apple Watch and I'm still paying for it. And I'm making payments to Verizon for it, and like I don't use it ever. It's been sitting on my desk for the last month and a half. I've worn it once in the past maybe 3 months, and it's not because it's not a cool little gadget. And I guess it really is a cool gadget, even though it's not very useful because nobody's texting people from their Apple Watch. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, you can read your text messages and send messages, but nobody texts from it. It's kind of fucking annoying to text from it, and it's just like, just take a break. You don't need to be connected to people 24/7. Take a break and fucking make some actual, in real life, physical interactions with people. And that's one of the things about the pandemic that really drives me nuts, is that so many people have become dependent on, technological social interaction. People weren't going out and seeing people, so they relied on Zoom and Facebook and all these social medias and Netflix parties, and like, so you can watch Netflix with people who are in a different place than you are, and it freaks me out, really, that we become like so devoid of actual human interaction. We don't like to interact with people, and when we do, we're always on our phones 24/7, and it really freaks me out. And I think Carlin did a good job of explaining that in that little 2-minute and 20-second clip, even if it did sound a bit crazy a bit. Cell phone that rubs your balls, but it's true. Everybody wants a cell phone that does this and does that, and they end up never using it anyway. Alright, so with that being said, the cell phone that rubs your balls and makes you pancakes and whatever, that being said, we are becoming very out of touch, even more so out of touch than we have been, which is pretty alarming. And it's pretty dangerous to be so out of touch. At least I think, in my humble opinion, it's pretty dangerous. That being said, I plan to do this episode on the Plandemic. So I started recording this yesterday, and I kind of ran out of time, so I recorded the first 12 or so minutes yesterday, and I'm just finishing it now as I speak. And I had to go I went to the Phillies game with my brother yesterday. It was a good time. It's actually kind of weird because I feel like I'm like the only person in the world who's been to 2 Phillies games where the game got cut short by rain, and like they had to resume the game the next day. So like I was at Game 5 of the 2008 World Series, the game when the Phillies won. When they won the whole thing, and that game was cut. I don't remember what inning it was. I was only like 9 years old, but it was cut in 2 because the rain was so bad they had to stop the game, and then they resumed play the next day in the World Series, and I went back the next day to watch the Phillies win it all. And then yesterday it was the 9th inning, and the Phillies were winning 2-0 the whole game, and then they gave up a 2-run home run at the bottom and the top of the 9th. And I looked at my brother. I was like, "All right, let's get out of here. I can already see how this is going to turn out." And we get in the car and we start leaving. And then I put the game on the radio just to see how it finishes. And as soon as we start pulling out of the Citizens Bank Park parking lot, it starts downpouring tremendously. Like some of the heaviest rain I've ever seen. I was on 76 trying to get back to my house, and there was no visibility whatsoever. Everybody had their hazards on, their flashers, and going like 5 miles per hour. And it was like incredibly hard to see how close I was to the barrier, the wall to the left of me, and I was like terrified. But it was some pretty crazy storms last night. The lightning looked really cool in the sky. That's one takeaway from it, is it was like really cool lightning. It was very bright, like the entire, like one strike of lightning was lighting up the entire sky, really. And but yeah, like I said, I'm going to do this episode on the Plandemic, so I'm going to get into the Plandemic. And I think a good way to start that would be by playing this clip for you. It's a clip of Conor McGregor. I didn't know this clip existed. I just saw it on Twitter yesterday, and now I'm looking at it on YouTube right now, and it says it was originally from March 2020, so like a year and 3 months ago, so what's that, 15 months ago. I haven't seen it. I never seen this video, but basically it's a video of Conor McGregor looking at a camera and begging the Irish government, to go into full-on lockdowns over this virus. And remember, this is a virus that's pretty much killing nobody, and he's begging, like one of the biggest celebrity in Ireland, I would assume. I've never been to Ireland, but I would assume Conor McGregor is like the biggest celebrity there. He's probably definitely the biggest name from Ireland in America, and but anyway, he's begging the government to go into lockdown and to follow the footsteps of other countries before it's too late. And it's really like ominous. And it's about a 2-minute clip here. I'm going to play it for you, and just to kick off the episode on the Plandemic here. All right, and I'll see you on the other end of this clip.
Hello everyone, hello Ireland. I would like to address my nation. To the people of Ireland, to our President Michael D. Higgins, to Vice Admiral Mark Mellett, to Garda Commissioner Drew Harris, Chief Medical Officer Tony Houlihan, Leo, the two Simons, Mary and Mihal. I respect you all greatly, and I would like to put forth some of my thinking. I want to say that while we are all currently debating a full lockdown, I feel that we must. Any time spent debating this is needless time from the clock. I know a good tough fight when I see one, and we have one on our hands now. I want to call upon my people, the great people of Ireland. This fight needs us all. We are all in the red corner together, awaiting the bell. So let's gather together and ring the bell ourselves, including the people of the rest of the world. True lockdown must begin, and it must begin now. A lockdown together, a lockdown united. We must close our airports. We must close all non-essential business. We must cut all non-essential travel. Commissioner Harris and Vice Admiral Mellett, we must prepare and deploy our units to all and any known built-up areas across our country now. President Higgins, you must give these great men and women the power to enforce this task if necessary. However, I know that when the true seriousness of this is understood, as it is becoming now, our great nation will oblige, and impeccably do so. It is time for a full lockdown, and we are ready. Powers that be, I am calling to you all. The fate of our great island depends on it. This is my proposal, and I pray that we can make this happen. We need to take the same measures of some of the heavier affected countries, only we must do it in quicker time. We have the advantage here in that we can see this coming. We can see this coming. But if we do not act on our advantage, then we cannot expect different results. We are not adhering to social distancing, at least not to the extent required to halt exponential growth. A lockdown will facilitate this. It will reduce transmissions, it will take the pressure off of our frontline staff, and it will allow us to identify all of our cases. These methods are stringent but necessary and have worked in China and Hong Kong. Ireland, we have got this. Not only do we have the formula, we have it ahead of time. Let's go Ireland. Let's go rest of the world. Lockdown, united. Together we stand. God bless us all.
All right, it's pretty fucking spooky, right? I started laughing, and he's like, "This is my thinking." Anyway, but did you guys notice something that he said? He said, "The powers that be, I am calling to you all. The powers that be, I am calling to you all." This is my proposal, I think, is what he said. But he said, "The powers that be, I am calling to you all." Who are the powers that be? Right? That's the powers that be are the people that people like myself are called conspiracy theorists for talking about, and yet we're conspiracy theorists for saying the powers that be are controlling things, and like the Illuminati, quote unquote, the Illuminati. I'm not going to get into the Illuminati. The Illuminati is just like it's a conspiracy theory for children, really. It's not like, yes, the Illuminati is real, but it's not the Illuminati. It's just the powers that be. It's just the shadow government. It's not like, oh, LeBron James is in the Illuminati. He threw up a diamond on the court. No, that's not. It's not that simple. It's like, it's a lot more complex than that. It's not. But anyway, yes, that's a clip of Conor McGregor calling to, as in his own words, the powers that be to put Ireland into a lockdown and over this virus that kills virtually nobody. That's healthy, at least, anyway. Pretty much the only people that have died from this COVID are people who were elderly or very at risk. People with cancer and stuff like that. And also, people in car accidents died of COVID as well and got listed as COVID. Deaths and people who got shot in the face apparently died of COVID. And so that's just how it works. And but yeah, so I really want to get into the Plandemic here and talk. I got quite a few pages of notes here. I went, like I said earlier in the episode, I went right into the belly of the beast, and I I was just curious. I was like, let me see what the mainstream media is saying about COVID, specifically the new Delta variant. Everybody's talking about the Delta variant. Oh, the Delta variant is popping up now. COVID wasn't enough in the beginning, so now the Delta variant has popped up. The Delta variant has arrived because I feel like the news and the mainstream media and the powers that be realize that COVID kind of lost some of its flair, its appeal. It's like people aren't really scared of it anymore, especially since now a shit ton of people have been vaccinated. They're not really scared of it anymore, and they're starting to live their lives again. Like I said, I was at the Phillies game last night, and it was only half attendance, but it was expected to rain throughout the entire game, so that could have a lot to do with the number of people there. But there was still 22,000 people at the Phillies game last night. Nobody's wearing masks except for a few people, and but anyway, people are starting to live their lives again, and I feel like that's concerning them. And now we have all of a sudden the new Delta variant. So I did some research just to see what the mainstream media was saying about the Delta variant, and so this is what I found, and this is straight from the LA Times, out in Los Angeles. This is what the headline reads from the LA Times. With new mask mandate, LA County now leads national battle against the Delta variant. What they're doing in LA County is they're imposing a new indoor mask mandate like we've had, we had for about a year and a half, really, and indoor public settings, so grocery stores, gyms, movie theaters, whatever, they're all being forced to wear masks again. Restaurants, you can only have your mask off when you're eating, and because that makes sense. Apparently, COVID doesn't leave your body. You don't transmit COVID while you're eating. Only while you're not eating is when you transmit COVID. And so the LA Times also goes on to say that the Delta variant is hyper contagious, and this is the term that they made up. Hyper contagious isn't really a medical term. I searched for hyper contagious on Google and DuckDuckGo and really got nothing of a definition, not even like a slang definition. Hyper contagious is literally just a phrase that the LA Times concocted themselves to scare people into thinking that the Delta variant is more contagious than the original COVID-19, really. And the corona, it's actually kind of hilarious, right? We know the death rate was extremely low with COVID-19, even with them counting people who died of other things in the death count. But the one thing they always tried to stress was, okay, even if the death count isn't necessarily that bad, it's still very contagious, and you need to take it so super seriously. And that's their excuse again this time. In LA County at least, is to just stress how hyper, in their words, hyper contagious, a term that doesn't even exist. It's just contagious. It's just a very contagious virus. Just say that. You don't have to use fake terms to make people fearful. But again, the LA Times is part of the mainstream media, and their job is to make people scared, so they keep consuming their media. That's how it works, folks. Any journalism class, they don't come right out and tell you we need to make the people scared so they keep watching, but they beat around the bush. They tell you that everything you do as a journalist for your organization is to create views and money and clicks and whatever, ad revenue. And that's their job, is to keep you coming back. It's like a drug dealer. Why would a drug dealer want to give you drugs that aren't going to make you come back? He wants to make money. So he gives you either addicting drugs or really good drugs. I mean, if you're getting coke or weed, the drug dealers that sell good coke and weed are going to do better than the drug dealers that sell bad coke and weed. If you're selling hard drugs like heroin, they're going to do a lot better than the people who are selling coke and weed, because heroin is extremely fucking addictive, and you're going to have to come back. Just like, what else is a very addictive drug? Fear. People are addicted to fear, and if you get people scared, especially with the news, they will keep coming back. And to get that fix, that because once people are scared, they constantly look to people in a position of quote-unquote authority, right? It's the same thing that the Catholic Church does. They instill fear into people, right? They told them that this place called hell exists, and that if they don't do what they're told, they'll go to hell. If they don't follow God's rules, they'll go to hell. And what do? Catholics and Christians alike, all Christians really, they follow the rules. They follow the rules, and not only do they follow the rules, but they keep going back to church every weekend. The fear keeps them coming back. They're not worried about being a good Christian or a good Catholic. They're worried about hell. We're not worried about being good people and saving lives from the coronavirus, a virus that doesn't even fucking kill people to begin with. We're worried about conforming. We're worried about our image. And that's what, in the mainstream media knows that. Like George Carlin says all the time, they got you by the balls. And they do. They know exactly how our minds fucking work. All those experiments scientists do with gerbils and with food and getting gerbils to press the button to release the food and stuff like that. That's all this is. It's a big fucking experiment. And we're sitting there begging for more and more lockdowns and masks and people got vaccines, and now the vaccines aren't good enough. Now you need booster shots, and because the Delta variant is so scary. Well, the fucking regular version of COVID-19 wasn't scary to begin with. Why the fuck would I be scared of the Delta variant? It's fucking July 18th now, 2021. COVID's been a major thing in the news really since February 2020. That's 17 months ago. I wasn't scared of it then. I'm sure as fuck not scared of it now. Leave me the fuck alone. The LA Times, in that same article, they talked about how the government is in LA County at least is trying to seek to balance the need to protect while acknowledging that those who got the vaccine can resume normal lives. So they made sure, the mainstream media, LA Times, made sure to point out, to in their fear-mongering, this article that they put out to scare you about the Delta variant, they made sure to stress that those who got the vaccine can resume their normal lives. Because that's what this is all about. It's not about fucking COVID. It's about money. It's about the vaccine, which has generated, which I'm going to talk about later in this episode, has generated billions of dollars. Billions with a B. That's what it's about. It's about money. It's about selling the vaccine. Create fear of a virus that, for all we know, doesn't exist. Make them scared enough to get a vaccine. And if they're not scared enough to get the vaccine, you know what you tell them? Well, your life isn't going to go back to normal until you get it anyway, so fucking get it. That seems a bit like, I don't know, maybe blackmailing? Extortion? Seems like the government and the mainstream media are nothing better than criminals. That's just my humble opinion, of course. But that's what it seems like. Am I wrong? Also from the mainstream media, an article from Live Science, because we trust the science around these parts. Do you need a COVID-19 booster vaccine to prevent the Delta variant? At this time, you do not need one, says Live Science. But, that being said, Pfizer has announced they are seeking authorization for a booster shot for their COVID vaccine. Live Science says that it's not necessary at this time for a booster vaccine shot. So if you've got the Pfizer vaccine, the one that's 2 shots, and then everybody got their second shot and felt like they were about to fucking die. That same company is filing for authorization to get a booster shot for their vaccine. So all of you people who went out and were like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. That was the worst feeling I ever had in my life, and I'll never do it again. I wonder how many of you guys are going to go out and get the booster vaccine, because it's going to be approved. They filed for authorization for it, but it's not like it's not going to be approved. This is bringing in billions of dollars. Of course it's going to be fucking approved. And this is the big thing, the kicker for me right here is this is an article from CNN posted on May 21st, 2021, about 2 months old. And I just talked briefly about the money that was created during this pandemic, directly related to the vaccine. CNN, May 21st, 2021. COVID vaccine profits mint 9 new pharma billionaires. Think about that for a second. During this pandemic, 9 people in the pharmaceutical industry became billionaires. Billionaires with a B. As in, they weren't billionaires before the pandemic. They worked in the pharmaceutical industry as executives, and now they're billionaires. So yes, 9 fucking billionaires, new billionaires in the pharmaceutical industry, were created as a direct result of the pandemic. But, before I go into detail about who these new billionaires are and their profits and everything, let me tell you a little bit about what happened in the United States alone during the pandemic. Okay, according to the Wall Street Journal, on April 16th, 2021, an article called COVID-19's Toll on U.S. Business. There were approximately 800,000 businesses closed during 2020, which was the height of the pandemic. 800,000 businesses. 400,000 of those, half of them, were small businesses. Think about that. 9 billionaires were created as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic and its vaccine, because they were pharmaceutical CEOs and executives. 9 billionaires were created. Meanwhile, the hardworking people of this country, the workers, the proles, the proletariats, lost everything. Almost 1 million businesses were closed during the pandemic. Were forced to close. Almost 1 million. 400,000, half of the 400,000 out of 800,000, half of those businesses that were forced to close, half, 400,000, were small businesses. The real hard-working blue-collar people of America. Think about that. The only people that prospered during the pandemic were rich. The rich got richer and the poor got poorer. That's what this was about. It's about destroying the middle class. Creating a further divide between rich and poor. It's not rich, middle class, and poor now. It's poor and rich. That's what they're effectively doing, or trying to do, at least. So 800,000 total businesses closed during the pandemic. 400,000 small businesses closed during the pandemic. 10 million total jobs were lost during the pandemic. And I know we had some pretty wild unemployment support, and good for them, for the people who got the unemployment support. But still, 10 million jobs lost as a direct result of the pandemic. Meanwhile, the fucking rich fat cats, like Johnny Cash said, probably drinking coffee and smoking big cigars. Those people made out. Those people lined their pockets as the real people, the hard workers of this country, were destroyed. Their lives were destroyed. Can you imagine if you had a bar or a restaurant and it was your pride and joy? It's just what you love doing every day is running your restaurant and working for yourself and having your own business, and it was always your dream to have your own bar, and then this pandemic appears out of nowhere, and all of a sudden people are calling and reporting to government officials, the health department, that you have, I don't know, 25 people in your restaurant when you're only allowed 22, and getting you fined out your ass. Because that's a very big part of... Sorry if you heard that. A book fell off my desk. But the fines by the government were a very big part of what caused so many businesses to close. I used to work at a transmission shop. And there was a lady who I worked there during the pandemic, and there was a lady who had a Dodge Durango, and her transmission went, and it needed a complete rebuild, and anyway, it ended up being like a $4,500, maybe $5,000 job that she needed done to her Durango, and she didn't have the money. So what my boss had allowed her to do, my boss was an extreme asshole, but it was a very generous thing for him to do, was he allowed her to, write 5 checks for $1,000 each and post date them by 2 weeks each. And so he would only cash 1 check at a time, and she would be able to pay for it that way. And when pay for it like that, and in the meantime, he would let her pick up her vehicle before it was paid in full for the repairs. And but when she came up to pick her vehicle up, she was a little bit early before it was ready to be picked up, and she was out talking to me and telling me about how she owns a diner in the area, and she's just stressed out of her mind because she's getting hit with fines by the health department in Pennsylvania, and I'm talking to her like, what are they fining you for? Like, about masks not being worn? And she said, really, it's people who come into the restaurant to eat. Those are the same people that are calling the health department to tell them that I have 1 or 2 more people in the restaurant than I'm supposed to, and then I get strikes by the health department, and I get thousands of dollars in fines by the health department. And she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford to pay my bills. And that first of all, if you were going out to eat during the pandemic, don't act like you're fucking scared of the virus. And don't call the health department on hard-working business owners who are just trying to get by and make a living. And doing it during this pandemic, which, even though I don't believe in the virus as a deadly virus, but, people are scared. They don't know if they're making the right decision or not. They should going to work every day and opening up a restaurant and giving people some semblance of normalcy during this fucking fucked up time that we're in, so they can go out and have a dinner together with their family during this fucked up time. And you want to call the health department on them for having one or two more people? If you're that fucking scared, stay the fuck home. And then she came to pick up her vehicle, and she was like, I actually just got off the phone with Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports. And he's going to give me a grant, because that's what he was doing. He was giving a lot of small businesses grants during the pandemic, and she was like so happy, and I felt so good for her. I was so happy for her. But can you imagine being that much of a fucking brown shirt, or I forget what the term was for the people in Nazi Germany who would snitch on their neighbors for hiding Jews? Can you imagine that? Being that despicable of a person to call the health department on your fellow American, your fellow business, like people who are just in meanwhile, you're at their restaurant eating. It's not like you were scared. Like if you're that scared, fucking say something while you're there. If you're that scared, don't go out of your fucking house at all. It's like the people who are wearing fucking 5 masks and 2 pairs of gloves. Like, just stay home, bro. If you're that fucking scared, just stay fucking home. It's 2021. Order your fucking groceries delivered, whatever. Just stop. It really does continue to surprise me how heartless we can be to the people, to the everyday people. And yet we praise, these celebrities and these government officials, and yet our own brothers, like not family, but our own, our people, our common people, we just could be so heartless to. It always, that really doesn't sit well with me. And I guess that's kind of how I started out this episode, talking about how out of touch we are in this materialistic society. We worship idols who are rich and have followers, and we don't give a fuck about the people who actually matter. And it's very sickening. Talking a little bit more about how hard this plandemic, I'm going to keep saying plandemic because I do believe it was planned, how hard this plandemic was for people. Did you know that during every pandemic in the history of the world, suicide rates had considerable increases because people are stuck at home for hours and hours and hours, days and days, and weeks and months and months? A year and a half maybe people were stuck at home, being told by the television not to leave their house, not to socialize with people, and the only interaction they were getting with people was through screens. Zoom calls, FaceTime, Netflix party, like I mentioned earlier. Do you know how detrimental that is to your mental health? Luckily, I never stopped doing things. Luckily, I never stopped going to the gym. I never stopped hanging out with people. I never stopped going to work. I'm very fortunate for that. But not everybody was so fortunate. Not everybody was hip to the lies as fast as I was. And I know I'm very fortunate to have been able to pick up on it, and some people weren't. And that's actually one of the bright spots of this pandemic, is that it opened a lot of people's eyes to how fucked up the government is. Especially in my conspiracy theory server, the Discord server for the podcast, a lot of people talk about how they were kind of on the fence about a lot of conspiracy theories before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and it really opened their eyes to a lot of what's actually going on. But I wonder how many people committed suicide during this pandemic because of they were locked in their houses for a year without any social interaction. Because they lost their jobs, because they lost their businesses. How many people do you think committed suicide because of that? And I don't mean to bring up a dark topic and make people feel shitty, but it's a question that needs to be asked, because if you don't ask this question, what are you doing? Because those evil motherfuckers, like I said, the pharmaceutical industry, Big Pharma, had 9 new billionaires alone. Not mentioning all the people who probably became millionaires, but 9 billionaires were created in the pharmaceutical industry as a result of the pandemic and the COVID-19 vaccines. How many people died? How many people killed themselves? Lost their jobs, lost everything they had. So these big pharma executives could become billionaires. Think about that. Isn't that fucked up? Think about that every time you fucking question somebody about whether or not they've gotten the vaccine. Think about that whenever somebody questions you about whether you got the vaccine. And tell them. I'm not going to be responsible for the increase, for the bigger pockets of pharmaceutical executives. And if you're listening to this and you are one of the people who was forced, I doubt that you would be listening to this, but if you are and you were one of the people who was badgering people about the vaccine, think about that. The lives that were lost. Because we know COVID only killed people who were very ill, very elderly, or very young, as in babies. Just like any other sickness, just like the flu. It kills old people. Just like pneumonia, it kills old people and people who have diseases. It's no different. Not whatsoever. So if you were one of the people pushing people to get the vaccines, think about that. How dark that is. That, people lost everything. They worked their entire lives and lost everything because of this coronavirus and the push to make people billionaires when people are losing their jobs and losing their businesses and losing their life savings just to stay afloat. Just fucking think about that. I talked about the 9 billionaires, and I'm going to get back to those 9 billionaires in a second. But, you know what else was pretty successful during the pandemic? I talked about 9 billionaires made during COVID-19 pandemic as a direct result of the vaccines. You know who else was very successful? Jeff Bezos. Bezos, however you say his name. The CEO of Amazon. I think he stepped down very recently, or whatever. And people were like, why would he step down? Well, do you want me to tell you why he would step down? Do you know how much money he made during the pandemic? While people were losing their jobs, losing their life savings, losing their businesses, losing everything they fucking worked 40 years to have. You know how much money he made? Jeff Bezos of Amazon, the CEO, made $75 billion during the pandemic, profiting off of our hardships. $75 billion with a B. Do you know he bought like 2 months ago? May 10th, 2021, CNN reports Jeff Bezos' super yacht. It's so big it needs its own yacht. 417 square foot yacht. Super yacht. Costs $500 million. $500 million he spent on a yacht. A yacht so big. So fucking big. 417 square feet. That it needs a smaller yacht to support it on the water. That $500 million does not include the price of the smaller yacht. So maybe we're talking $750 million. $750 million he spent on yachts. After he profited $75 fucking billion during the pandemic. It's fucking sickening that anybody could have so much money while everybody is suffering and losing their jobs and losing everything they fucking worked for. All right, now let me tell you a little bit about those 9 new billionaires. I don't have information on every single one of them, but I can tell you that, according to CNN, they said topping the list of new billionaires are Stephanie Bance. Stephanie Bance, the Moderna CEO. You know, Moderna, the other vaccine company who made a 2-shot vaccine for COVID-19. Pfizer and Moderna had the 2-shot vaccines. Stephanie Bance, the CEO of Moderna, became a billionaire during the pandemic. Ugur Sahin, I might be butchering his name, of BioNTech. BioNTech was the company that worked with Pfizer. They worked with Pfizer to create the Pfizer vaccine, the other 2-dose vaccine. He was an executive at BioNTech, and he also became a billionaire with a B during the pandemic. Together, Ugur Sahin and Stephanie Bance are worth $4 billion. The top 2 vaccine company executives, or executives from 2 of the top vaccine companies in the entire world, became billionaires during this pandemic. And together they are worth $4 billion. And I want people to understand how much money $1 billion is. Like, everybody knows, like, $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. Like, it's not enough to retire on. Like, it's not enough, like, if I want $1 million today, like, it's not enough, like, oh, I could just bank this and live the rest of my life comfortably. No. But $1 billion? That's quite a different story. That's the rest of my life, my kids' lives, my grandkids' lives, my great-grandkids' lives, and my great-great-grandkids' lives, and probably my great-great-great-great-grandkids' lives. Everybody's set for. And together, those 2 top vaccine executives, not just $1 billion, they're worth $4 billion. That's generational wealth. Generations and generations and generations of your fucking bloodline can be supported by that money. And they got it all, while we fucking crashed and burned and struggled and feared for our jobs. And I talked about how many people lost their jobs and how many people lost their businesses and how suicide rates are skyrocketing. What about the stress of the people who were just working? You know, maybe they were scared because of the pandemic, even though I don't believe that, even though we don't believe that the pandemic was dangerous to begin with. Some people were actually scared because of the mainstream media. Going to work every day, scared, they don't know what's going to happen to them. Going to work every day, not knowing if they were going to have a job tomorrow because businesses were getting so fucking slow, and not knowing how they were going to be able to support their families. Meanwhile, these people became fucking billionaires with a B, creating generational wealth for their family off of our hardships and our struggles. Also becoming billionaires during the pandemic were senior executives from a company called CanSino Biologics. CanSino Biologics is a company that was a huge early investor in Moderna. Just like Moderna's CEO became a billionaire, their senior executive investors also became billionaires during the pandemic. And a little bit more about that company that invested in Moderna. That CanSino Biologics is a Chinese vaccine company who invested in Moderna very early on, and their executives all became billionaires. CanSino Biologics is actually expanding into the Mexican markets now, and they were listed on the Shanghai Stock Exchange in August 2020, and it already raised $750 million on the stock market, Shanghai Stock Exchange, since August 2020. Not even a year. $750 million. And they're not even including in those profits is the 2 executives who became billionaires that invested into Moderna. a little bit more about CanSino. They are currently working on COVID-19 and Ebola vaccines. They developed a single shot vaccine, just like Johnson & Johnson has a single shot vaccine, the one-time shot, but Johnson & Johnson's vaccine side effect reports were very crazy, like blood clots and strokes and loss of movement in their limbs and stuff like that. Lots of crazy shit. And their single shot vaccine is actually being tested as we speak in Chile, Mexico, Pakistan, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. Because I guess they know that our vaccine market's already dominated by Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. And so they're going to scoop up the rest of the money that's out there. So yeah, that's a little bit about the 9 fucking billionaires that were created during the pandemic while we suffered and worked for shit wages and with stress at the back of our minds, not knowing if we were going to have jobs tomorrow. And I remember working at the transmission shop that I worked at, like, the boss, who was a very big asshole, he told me, he was like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, but if we start slowing down because of COVID, you're going to be without a job. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, that was a big thing that was weighing on the back of my mind. It's like, how am I going to work? What am I going to do for money? Like, because every day you come in and it starts to get a little bit slower, and you're like, well, fuck. Like, I'm probably going to be without a job. And luckily, the transmission shops are kind of almost recession-proof because there's not many transmission shops left. So we picked up fairly quickly, and I never lost my job, but not everybody can say the same. A lot of people did lose their jobs. A lot of people were filled with that fucking stress in the back of their mind 24/7 about, I'm going to lose my job. How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to get clothes for my kids? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for my car? How am I going to put gas in my car? A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people committed suicide. A lot of people lost their entire businesses, life savings, trying to pay fines for having too many people in their restaurants. Meanwhile, we have our own fucking people, people who are supposed to be, citizens of this country, and we're supposed to support each other, and diming people out to the health department because of a virus that kills virtually nobody who's healthy at all. It's a very fucked up situation in time that we went through these past, 17, 18 months, year and a half. And to think that so many people gained generational wealth that's going to support their bloodline for a century or maybe more, while we fucking lost everything. It's disheartening, it's sad, it's sickening, it makes me angry. It makes me want to go and, fucking strangle a billionaire, kill the rich. I see a lot of shit on Twitter, eat the rich. And it's really fucking gross. Just sitting there thinking about how Jeff Bezos bought a Jeff Bezos made $75 billion during the pandemic while we were losing our jobs, losing our minds, losing our sanity, killing ourselves, losing our businesses, our life savings. He made $75 fucking billion. That piece of shit. And then to rub it in our faces, he steps down as CEO from Amazon, and he buys a fucking $500 million super yacht, not including the money that it costs for the support yacht, because the yacht's so big that it can't float alone. Like, the balls on him. And you know what? They can do it. Because most of the people in this country are fucking slaves to the mainstream media and believe whatever they tell them. They believe that it's a good thing that Amazon profited like this. They believe it's a good thing, right? A report I have here listed down from Brookings.edu. I'm not really sure about the nature of Brookings.edu, about the university or whatever it is. But they reported that Amazon and Walmart have raked in billions in additional profits during the pandemics and shared almost none of it with their workers. According to this article, Jeff Bezos and Walmart have grown $116 billion richer during the pandemic. So Bezos, Amazon, and Walmart together have grown $116 billion richer during the pandemic. The pandemic, like I said, produced record profits for only the biggest companies. Meanwhile, all the small businesses, like I said, 800,000 businesses total closed during the pandemic. Half of them, 400,000 of them, were small businesses, hardworking people who saved up their entire life savings to open their business. The only people who recorded profits were rich, were the billionaires, the almost billionaires, the biggest companies in the world. They've produced record profits. We'll talk about the stock prices for Amazon and Walmart. Amazon soared 70% during the pandemic. Walmart soared 36% during the pandemic. Do you know why? And this is basically what I believe the Plandemic was for. To usher in this, I believe the Plandemic was the early stage of ushering in a sort of corporate fascism. And what do I mean by corporate fascism? I mean a society, a country, a government a society and a country with a government that's almost non-existent. And what I mean by that, and I know this whole show is about calling out government, and that's what I do. I hate government. But a corporate fascist society is a society where the corporations are the government, essentially. We've killed off the small businesses that could support and sustain local economies, that to the point where we wouldn't have to depend on big corporations. But now, like I said, 400,000 small businesses were forced to close as a direct result of the pandemic. We forced these small businesses to close, and as I said, Brookings.edu reporting that the only people that profited during the pandemic were major companies. They produced record profits, while small businesses and small business owners closed and they suffered. They're squashing, they're eradicating, they're cleansing our society of small businesses who can support people, so that we become dependent on the big businesses. So we become dependent on the big corporations, so the big corporations can tell us how to live our lives. And how did we become dependent on Amazon during the pandemic? Well, nobody left their fucking house. What does Amazon offer? With Amazon Prime, free 2-day delivery. You can have anything you fucking want. Like George Carlin talked about, that cell phone that rubs your balls and makes you pancakes. You want that cell phone, you can have it in 2 days. Direct to your door. You don't have to go outside and worry about getting COVID-19. You need books to read? You can't go to the bookstore because the bookstore is closed because of COVID-19. So you got to order it on Amazon. Any book you want, be at your doorstep in 2 days. Sometimes a day. You need vitamins to support your immune system during the pandemic. Don't go to the drugstore. Go on Amazon. They'll be here in 2 days. That's how Jeff Bezos grew $75 billion richer during the pandemic. And I'm guilty of it too. I use Amazon a lot. I'm not going to lie. And maybe I'll stop. Maybe I'll stop using Amazon as much as I possibly can. Because it is part of the problem. I know me canceling my subscriptions to Amazon and me not using Amazon is not going to hurt them one bit, but it does feel kind of shitty. I wish we could all have a big movement come together and do it together and fuck Amazon. But unfortunately, I don't see that ever happening. Jeff Bezos, his hourly I'm sorry, I can't speak today. Hourly earnings increased during the pandemic by $11.5 million. Think about that. Making $11.5 million more than he was before the pandemic. Meanwhile, the average Amazon employee saw an increase of 99 cents an hour. Walmart, the owners and CEOs of Walmart, per hour, they made an extra $6.2 million, and their employees made an extra 71 cents per hour. And it's sad, and I know I say it's sad a lot, and it's because what else am I supposed to say? I mean, I just want you guys to realize how sad this is, because maybe a lot of people will wake up and start realizing that something's wrong if I put it out here so plainly in plain color, in black and white, and you can see how wrong this pandemic was and how hurtful it was. And I was talking to somebody earlier in the week, and I said, if we really cared about the pandemic, right? If the pandemic was, if we really wanted to save lives during this pandemic, we would have taken the COVID for what it was. COVID is a virus, just like any other virus. I see it's highly contagious. So how about when you get pneumonia and you don't go visit your elderly grandparents because they could possibly get sick and die? How about we treat it like that? And so maybe it's a little bit more contagious than pneumonia. So how about we tell elderly people to stay home and wear masks around people who have been traveling a lot? Why don't we do that? No, do you know what we did instead of telling elderly people to stay home and not travel? Because those are the people who are actually at risk of dying. We told the entire population to stay home and to wear masks around anybody. Not just one mask, 2 masks. Not just 2 masks, but also gloves. And also sanitize your hands 5 times a day. Over a virus that kills virtually nobody that's healthy. But you know what would have been the better route? Was to tell the elderly people to stay home. Meanwhile, the people who are able-bodied, young, and not elderly, and able to work and go to work, and have them continue to live their lives. They'll get the virus, but they'll pass it around, and they'll live through it, just like you live through the common cold, just like you get the flu or you get pneumonia and you live through it. We would create herd immunity. Herd immunity when the virus passes through a population, and then the population gains an immunity to the virus because of antibodies. We would have generated it. But no, everybody who's able-bodied was told to stay home. Told not to do this, not to do that. And as a result, small businesses died. As a result, people killed themselves. As a result, people lost everything they had. As a result, people lost their businesses. As a result, Jeff Bezos made $75 billion. As a result, 9 billionaires were made in the pharmaceutical industry. As a result, Jeff Bezos bought a $500 million fucking super yacht. I hope you guys are as pissed off as I am. And I think I'm going to leave you guys there with that. I'm not going to ramble off into any other topics. This has been a lengthy episode, and I want to leave you guys there so you guys can really think about what I just said. And I'll leave you guys with a little... if you follow me on Twitter, I was pretty silent yesterday because I was put into Twitter jail. Metaphorical Twitter jail. And the reason I was put into Twitter jail is because there was somebody on Twitter arguing. So somebody on Twitter was talking about how they reported child pornography to Twitter, and Twitter wouldn't ban it. It wouldn't delete it. And somebody replied to the person who reported the child pornography, and they were like, it wasn't child pornography, it was just drawings of children having sex. Like, excuse me, what? That's not child pornography? He said, no, child pornography is when it's actual people, human beings, not drawings. Drawings are fair, and you're allowed to make sexually explicit images of children, as long as they're not actual humans, not photographs or videos. So I told the guy to jump off a bridge, and then Twitter banned me for 12 hours because I told a pedophile who was supporting child pornography on Twitter to go jump off a bridge. And I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you watch child porn or you're a pedophile or whatever, fucking kill yourself. I don't hold any regard for the lives of people who want to have sex with children. Just like if you have a dog who has rabies, you put it down. If a man or a person is attracted to human children and wants to have sex with human children, I don't give a fuck if it's a problem with their brain or not. You put it down, just like the dog who has rabies. And with that, I leave you, like I say every week, keep on keeping on. Remember that we're all gods out here, and have a wonderful day.